that stuck in my head this morning. I have no idea why. I probably haven't heard that song in like 6 years, but I just doomed myself forever for it to be stuck in my head. Morning stream. We're morning streaming. I got work to do today, and I want to play Civilization with my wife tonight, so morning stream. So I was reading this story today, and I thought maybe we could... I got about halfway through it, and then I realized, like, this is exactly what the stream has been about for, like, the last month that I've been doing it. And I feel like it's something that doesn't get reported on, really. Like, people don't actually talk about it. It's not really, like... I think I watch a fair amount of cable news through, like, the cable news that I consume in clips and stuff. I don't see it talked about. I don't see people freaking out about it. And it serves as one of those things where you feel like you're kind of gaslit because it's something you should, like, because you don't see it on TV and because you don't hear about it regularly and at a high volume, it just internalizes that, like, oh, well, maybe it's not that big a deal, right? Like, maybe it's not that big a deal. But I was reading a couple of days ago that unemployment has started to go back up. We've had positive growth in unemployment claims. For a little bit there, we had a flat line where the same unemployment claims week after week were being made after a devastating, like, nosedive of, like, huge increases every single week for, like, 3 months when lockdowns were happening all across the country and all that kind of stuff. And then it kind of leveled off. And everybody was like, whew. That's when everybody in the White House came out and was like, we're on the recovery. But when you started hearing the word recovery, that's when that was happening. And then, and now, pretty much unreported and without anybody actually talking about it, it's ticking back up slowly. So the reason for that is you have small businesses that, like, you have small businesses that made it a little bit, that they could kind of skirt the rules here and there, and or the rules weren't so hard to implement that they were missing out on money, and plus they had a good, robust customer base. Like, if you're a small town restaurant, you have the same people come and eat there every week, and you've kind of gotten consistent, right? But over time, they couldn't sustain that. When, you know, you got to pay rent, you got to keep the lights on, you got to pay all your payroll. There's a million things that you got to take responsibility for in the course of that, and those costs are piling up while your income is slowly dwindling away. I mean, there are lots of small businesses that have had this problem. And the over time, you know, 3 or 4 months of that, you know, maybe you can make it a month like that, or you can make it 2 months like that. But after 3, 4, 5, going on 6, 7 months now, your reserves start running dry. Your customers are now, because your customer base is probably, since they're local to you, they're probably in worse financial shape, so maybe they're not coming to eat at the restaurant as often. Or they've decided not to come eat at the restaurant because they're afraid of getting sick. And so you're making a ever-shrinking pile of money to pay an ever-growing pile of debt. And eventually, it just becomes, well, not only am I going to close, but I have to close permanently because I have to declare bankruptcy to get out of all this insane debt that I've accrued, which is what's going to end up happening to a lot of these small businesses, right? And the reason that we're seeing a delay in unemployment going back up is that this effect is just now kind of starting to happen. And it's a much bigger bubble that we're going to have to tackle shortly. But anyway, I got to reading this story. All that in mind, I got to reading this story. And this chick, here, I'll show it to you. This chick, Bridget Reed, she writes for The Cut. She spent like 36,000 hours or something on the Reddit unemployment thread, which is just people logging in and sharing their stories about like, man, it took me this long to get my unemployment, it took me this many calls, or this is the best number to call, or like, have you guys gotten your unemployment yet, and all that kind of stuff. She spent 36,000 hours, I think she said. Here, I'll pull up the tweet on my phone. I think she said 36,000 hours. Oh, 36,000 hours. 36 hours and 2,000, and she had said 2,000 new subscribers in the last week to the page. So she spent 36 hours on the unemployment Reddit thread, and kind of wrote about like the stories that were being told on there, what people's experience is, because we're not getting that from people, and you can't go and like talk to people in the line at the unemployment office because COVID. So there is no way to directly report on this stuff. You know, in the Depression, we have a good account of how this was happening, and the food lines and the unemployment lines and all that kind of stuff, because there were reporters on the ground. They could be on the ground and talking to these people, and they could get contemporaneous accounts. But that's not happening in our current pandemic state, because everybody's doing everything online. So this is the place to go and see people's account of what's going on. Oddly enough, like we're turning to Reddit, but whatever. So the headline is, feels like they are just waiting for us to die. On Reddit unemployment, a community of desperate people has stepped in where the government failed. So like, I'm pretty much just going to read through this and tell you my thoughts on it, because like I said, I read through about half of this, and there's just not anything that's worth skipping. Like, this encapsulates everything that we've been talking about on the stream since I started. It's everything that we've been talking about on the stream. It's everything that like I've ever been posting about. Like, this kind of puts it all in a bottle and paints the whole picture. So, Erin Young hadn't eaten in 4 days. She was waiting to certify her eligibility for an extra $300 a month in unemployment benefits called Lost Wages Assistance, announced by Donald Trump on August 8th. She hadn't worked since March. It was now September 15th. So, in 6 months, right? She hasn't worked, and she hasn't gotten unemployment. And what the government has given to her is $1,200. $1,200. That has been the resounding response. Here, hang on just a second. I gotta do a thing. Hold on. Anyway, that has been her government's like roaring response to a global pandemic that has killed 200,000 people, that is significantly more infectious than any disease that we have to deal with on a regular basis, and that we have no therapeutics approved by the FDA, and we have no vaccine. This is their response to unprecedented conditions. Young had stayed up all night refreshing her California employment account homepage. In the morning, she finally found the question that had shaped the last 5 weeks of her life sitting on her screen. Are you unemployed or partially unemployed due to COVID? She clicked the box that said yes. Then she updated a post she'd made on Reddit unemployment a day earlier, titled, "Please pray for me that I don't become homeless and that I'm able to find a job soon." Update, she wrote. Just logged on 9:45 a.m. and LWA certification was available. Go certify, everyone, she wrote. I'm beyond ecstatic that I got to certify today. I hope it gets here soon. I'm so hungry. Reddit unemployment is a Reddit community where people struggling with the frustrating, opaque process of receiving benefits can go to seek advice and commiserate. Its membership has skyrocketed since April, when joblessness reached historic levels in the wake of the COVID pandemic. Like Young, many post about their fears of losing their homes and about going hungry. I'm just here to vent for a second, someone from New York wrote on the forum a few days before. I have a 2-year-old, and we're struggling just to eat every day. It's insane. A poster replied 10 minutes later, I have $2,000 in bills due next week and literally $40 sitting in my bank account. I've been living on dry Cheerios. Another person suggested donating plasma with a caveat. You need to have a good breakfast and at least a gallon of water the day prior. Meridel Lesueur wrote in 1932 that she saw hunger, quote, like the beak of a terrible bird at the vitals. In the breadlines and soup kitchens of the Great Depression, when unemployment rates reached 24.9%. There was no government welfare state at the time. Just under a century later, we have something called unemployment insurance. Now the breadlines have mostly moved out of sight, with hundreds of thousands of people on hold for hours with benefit representatives. And for those who can't get help from the government, there is Reddit Unemployment, which now functions as a kind of ad hoc, crowdsourced People's Benefit Office, where some 46,000 members of the American unemployed have congregated to help themselves. Young, a 28-year-old restaurant server in Marietta, California, of course, 28 years old. I mean, how can you build a society that has any sort of trust in its institutions, any sort of trust in government, and what voting is going to do for them when you're 28 years old and you're going hungry and you had a full-time job? Go vote. Go vote. Who are you telling to go vote? This dude has a 2-year-old, and he's eating dry Cheerios. There are people elected that we voted for that could do something about this. They already did something about it for all the corporations and businesses and shit. She was let go from her job shortly after the start of the COVID pandemic. She filed for unemployment assistance right away, but it took her months to hear back from her state. And only after another Redditor helped her contact her state representative. 4 million Americans have reportedly waited more than a month to receive their first check. In July, the $600 a week federal action rolled out by the CARES Act ended, leaving Young back where she started, unable to afford food, much less pay her rent or her bills. Now, waiting for her lost wages assistance, Young and another wave of Reddit unemployment posters, yo-yoing between subsistence and hunger, flooded the site with questions, looking for the help they had read was coming. I mean, these people are desperately, like, clawing for anything. I mean, and you say, you know, you're going to have a jackwagon that says, like, well, man, I mean, they could go find another job. Nobody's stopping them from going and finding another job. Yeah. Where, genius? Where? All right. The anxious corridors of our unemployment are riddled with acronyms: PUA, LWA, PEUC. The feed is inundated with Kafkaesque tales of dysfunction. One state has a 24/7 chat function from which no one has ever been able to get a response. What? Posters say they are required to respond to texts in order to claim their benefits, but they can't afford cell service. After 5 months of silence, one claimant received a letter one day after its stated deadline to be returned. One day after its stated deadline to be returned. Some of the local benefit programs are wildly ill-named. Assistance in Pennsylvania, routinely late to deposit, goes on something called a Relia card. California's Employment Development Department uses a 60-year-old programming language called COBOL that was invented when Dwight Eisenhower was the president. On days when assistance is set to arrive, the forum is consumed by spasms of fear. Be honest, how many times have you logged into the unemployment website to check if you got your benefits today? One poster asks. I've checked at least 20 times, someone replies. It's driving me crazy. So even if you jump through all the fiery hoops to get the unemployment benefits, it's possible that they just oopsie and don't deposit it, and then you gotta wait until they cut checks again. But which could be a week, it could be a month. But Reddit unemployment is an orderly, well-lit place compared to the rest of Reddit, where conversations are typically crude and unmanaged. Its moderators run it with temperance rules: no swearing, no memes, no trolling. Remember the human, regulations say. They do not allow posts of phone numbers or emails, lest they be reported as doxing by Reddit administrators. Subscribers must tag their posts with flair that delineates what state they're in, so unofficial experts, often on unemployment themselves, grad students, gas station managers, stadium workers, car salesmen, servers, can weigh in effectively on hyper-specific questions. So they have built, in the absence, this is where I stopped because I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. In the absence of our government being able to fulfill people's basic material needs, like fulfilling their unemployment insurance, which they pay taxes so that they are entitled to. Our government has failed to do that, right? And in the absence of their ability to do that, people have come together and built a community that is literally more responsive, more well-organized, more well-regulated and administrated than the actual... If Reddit unemployment could cut checks to people, it would be the most efficient government operation in the world. Or in the United States, at least. And the reason that this stuck out to me here, I'm going to take this off for a second and see if I can do something cool. The reason that this stuck out to me was because there was a video I saw when this all started. There's a video I saw when this all started where this guy, I think it was like a TikTok, this guy in Canada video of how he is to, oh, that was it, to get, damn you. Hold on, I'm gonna find this. When you can't find it on Google, you go to Twitter. This is worth it, I promise. I'm gonna look one more place. One more place. I know this is derailed, but I would rather you see it than I tell you. Oh yeah, okay. Hold the phone. I think this is gonna happen. Oh, I did it. Alright, check this out. Damn, that was looking really bleak for a second, y'all. But I did it. Here we go. Oh wait, hold on. You probably can't hear that. Haha. I'm a professional.
Why? Let's get right into it. So there's been a lot of discussion around the CREV, or the stimulus checks around the world going out for the coronavirus quarantine. So I live here in Canada, in Vancouver, BC, and I just wanted to give you guys a look at the process for getting it in Canada.
Oh, bro, relax. Hold on a second. You're not gonna go that fast, my friend.
So this is the full process for getting the CREV, or the stimulus check in Canada. I'm just gonna call them up.
Welcome to the CRA Canada Emergency Response Benefit Line. Bienvenue à la ligne de prestation canadienne tax number or individual tax number. By applying, you are giving consent.
Doesn't want you to hear his number.
Okay, so you enter your insurance number into the
If you
automated
are eligible
system.
for payment, you will receive it by direct deposit. To confirm your identity, please enter your year of birth. For which period are you applying? For April 12th to May 9th. Press 1. To repeat, press star. Confirm the following to receive your payment. You have not applied for, nor are you receiving, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit or Employment Insurance Benefit from Service Canada for the same eligibility period. You reside in Canada. You have not quit your job voluntarily. You earned a minimum of $5,000 in income within the last 12 months, or in 2019, from employment or self-employment income, or provincial or federal benefits related to maternity or parental leave. And one of the two following situations applies to you. You have stopped working for reasons related to COVID-19, and you continue to not work and expect to remain in this position for the entire 4-week period for which you are applying, and expect to receive no more than $1,000 in combined employment or self-employment income. Or you have been paid employment insurance regular benefits for at least 1 week of benefits since December 29, 2019, and have used up your entitlement to those benefits. You must certify that this information is true and correct, and acknowledge that making a false declaration is a criminal offense. If you certify...
Okay, so it's basically reading him the riot act about, like, listen, these are the qualifications. If you meet those, then great, we'll give you unemployment. If you don't meet those, then we are going to find out that you don't meet those on the back end, and we will get this money back from you, and you will be prosecuted.
That you meet all the requirements, and understand that you must repay any payments to which you are not entitled. Press 1. If not, press 2. To repeat, press star. Please wait while we process your request. Your request has been processed. You will receive a payment of $2,000 by direct deposit within 3 business days. Thank you.
Alright,
Done. That's legit a dude filing for unemployment in Canada. Because Canada looks at it as like, oh, you're unemployed. That means you're bad off financially. So, shit, here's the money, and we'll spend the next month making sure that you are really unemployed. You know, we'll do a little bit of investigation, shuffle some paperwork, talk to your employer, just make sure that everything's in order. And that way you can do stuff like eat and feed your kids and, you know, put gas in your car and shit. We'll do the work on the back end to make sure that, like, you are telling the truth. And then as long as that's the case, you'll keep receiving your shit. They already have, because they have state insurance, they already have his direct deposit information, so they can get him money immediately. They already have, they already know his address, where he's at, the best way to get a hold of him, all of that stuff, because they have a centralized system. They're not using a coding system from when Eisenhower was president. Okay, let's get back to this. Sorry, that was a little bit of a sidetrack, but it just, you have to put into context how much more difficult this is for Americans than it is for people in other countries. Even like Western capitalist countries, you know, because you could write off like, yeah, of course they could do it in Korea and China and all that. Like all of your idiot relatives and whatever can write off that, well, they did that because of communism. Okay, fine. Like, cool. You're insane, but cool. Whereas this shit, that's Canada. They're supposed to be like good, but not as good as us. We're the best, right? And that dude just got unemployment in 5 minutes. Tailored help usually comes within a few hours, sometimes in the form of a hack. In Michigan, dial 991111 to get a real person. In New York, tag the Department of Labor on Twitter. Many people are worried about committing fraud because they got a few hours of work one week. So maybe they got desperate and they were like, well, I'm going to go drive Uber because I still haven't got my unemployment. And then they get their unemployment while they're driving Uber and they're like, oh shit, afraid to cash it. What if I sold something on eBay? Do I have to report it? A poster from Texas recently asked if they could resist the government's order to pay back $3,300 for refusing to return to work in a store that was not providing personal protective equipment. The consensus was no. No, they're going to threaten you. They're going to blackmail you to go back to work in a dangerous environment. The same day that Young spent the night frantically checking on her benefits in California, another bipartisan bill from the House Problem Solvers Caucus was announced. Okay, don't get excited, posted another one of you people. The bill included $450 a week in federal unemployment, which could rise to $600, but would be capped at whatever your wages were before. So basically, this is all that concern trolling about, like, if we do $600 extra a week, people are going to be making more money on unemployment than they were when they were employed. Okay, that's a problem with wages in this country, not unemployment. The fact that you look at it and go, oh, we got to pay people at least, like, you know, $2,400 extra a month so that they can get by, and then that's more than they're making at their full-time job, that's a problem with the wages they're being paid. That's not a problem with the unemployment system. I'm sorry. As they had for 6 months, the denizens of Reddit unemployment processed how information they gleaned from CNN and the Wall Street Journal articles would impact their fate in real time. I'll take it, said one person. Another worried about states' abilities to process another huge amount of individual cases given the chaos of the past 6 months, when, quote, the influx of claims decimated them. Quickly, it didn't matter. Users began updating the thread that the bill was dead on arrival. The House Democratic leadership had rejected the proposal in a statement saying it falls short of what is needed to save lives. Oh, give it a break, someone commented. If they cared about saving lives, they would have passed something months ago. People know, man. People know. It would still be another few days before Young would actually get her lost wages assistance money and be able to eat. She wanted to put gas in her car so she could drive to a food pantry. She was also hoping to pay her cell phone bill so she could call her mother, living out of state and sick with the coronavirus. She knows the LWA will run out too, however, and she'll be back to square one. I am so scared, she says. I check the news every day. And she'll stay on Reddit unemployment, where people with nowhere else to turn are still turning. There are 2,000 more subscribers this week than last, besieged by compounding crises. Their struggles nesting Russian dolls of systemic breakdown. Parents who were forced to quit their jobs and stay home with their children because schools could not open wondered if they could collect. Someone was choosing between claiming unemployment or treating a health issue with Medi-Cal, for which they would not qualify if they took the extra benefit. In a post called It Gets Worse, a Redditor from Alabama wrote, "My wife and I just lost everything we owned except for our lives to Hurricane Sally last night. Lost temporary job due to wildfires in Oregon," wrote someone else. In August, a poster from Michigan was on my last leg here, he said. "I need some serious help, man," he wrote. "I'm drowning in my own agony. I don't know what to do anymore. I'd get therapy if my UE ever came through. Feels like they're just waiting for us to die or kill ourselves off. I truly feel abandoned by this country." Reddit calls all of its topic-based forums communities. The term ennobles the myriad miseries that populate every Reddit unemployment conversation and their accompanying resilience. But community is too squishy, too romantic to describe the online pandemic breadlines where no one wants to be. Even salvation, when it arrives, is austere. One poster, unable to receive any benefits for 11 weeks, dialed a number based on Reddit unemployment advice and finally got through to a human being at the unemployment office after 63 tries. The rep told him there was a mystery stop payment order on his account and reversed it right away. The poster was stunned. Quote, "It took him 3 minutes," he wrote, "to save my life." I mean, is this not what we've been talking about for weeks now? Like, I don't even know where to go with that. Like, these people have children that are being raised in these conditions. These people have sick relatives. Like, you have people just asking to be able to pay their cell phone bill so they can call their mother. This is the richest country on the face of the earth. There's more wealth in this country than in any civilization ever in the history of the world. And we have people who have gone days without eating. These people want to work. Like, these people want to go back to work and get back to their lives and normal and like make some money so that they can eat. And the answer that these people have gotten from their government is, sorry, you know, there's a lot of people that we gotta take care of. And the people at the higher branches of government are doing nothing. The Congress is leaving. The House is going home to campaign. The Senate is going home to campaign. They're only going to come back to confirm the Supreme Court justice. If they do that before the election, they're leaving. They're not going to write a new the odds of a new coronavirus relief bill coming before the next president is 0. And if Trump wins, you won't get one, because it doesn't benefit him. Unless they can leverage, it doesn't benefit him or the Republicans. Why would they do it? We won. We have 4 more years to do this. And then y'all are going to probably win anyway, because, you know, there's not going to be 3 Republicans in a row, or 3 Republican terms in a row. And so they're just going to be like, screw you, we won. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to help people. And dude, these people are desperate, man. I mean, these people are, like, you got people that haven't eaten. You got people that are living on, like, cereal. People who are, like, going to be evicted from their homes. And these people didn't do anything. They, you know, if COVID-19 had never happened, these people would still largely be employed, gainfully employed, making money, living fairly normal, now, struggling, of course, but fairly normal lives, able to at least feed themselves, in theory. And this is the richest country the world has ever seen. We cut a check for like $4 trillion when this started, so that we could shore up the stock market and all of the corporations in this country to make sure that they didn't crash. And in the meantime, these people have built a subreddit that is more responsive than their government. But you know what? We gotta vote. We gotta vote. You know, we gotta make sure that we're voting for the lesser of two evils. And even if we have to hold our nose and shit and really just like, commiserate with the fact that Joe Biden is a cretin that is responsible for a lot of the problems that we have as society. You know, Trump's bad, and we gotta vote. Like I said, who are you telling to vote? These people? You lost these people a long time ago. The only people that are listening to you go, vote, vote, are people who went to college, who live in mostly affluent areas, who don't have to worry about their bills most of the time. You know what I mean? Like, they're as worried about voting as they are building a new pergola on the back of their house or whatever. And you're telling these people standing in line, virtual line for hours, days, weeks, months, you're telling these people to vote? For what? For what? Their government was supposed to take care of them in this instance. This is why we pay taxes. We pay taxes to ensure the safety of our population and security of our population. Both physical security, but also financial and health, public health security. And it has been failed completely. We are in a more precarious position than we have ever been globally with the other superpowers of the world. We are constantly taunting and bullshitting with other nuclear powers, with other advanced countries. We are mired in an unbelievable amount of turmoil from which we will never be able to extract ourselves in the Middle East, which is putting this country at a security risk because, of course, they're going to be pissed off and attack people. Of course, terrorism is going to happen at some point. You've been there 20 years. Fighting an invisible enemy and killing civilians. And so our physical national security is completely wide open. I mean, we're just completely wide open to anything. Our public health security is clearly broken completely. We have 200,000 people that have died from a virus. If our death rate per capita was the same as a place like Canada, we would have 15,000 people dead. And our economic security is completely fucked. Because when the bottom falls out of this thing, which it is right now, the bottom is falling out of this thing. It's being propped up by a bunch of your money that was given to investors and shit to calm them down so that they didn't sell off. But when the bottom falls out of this thing and the bubbles burst, which they all are going to, probably soon, it is clear that you cannot provide for people. You're going to have other countries sending in the Red Cross to LA. You know, like, you remember when after shock and awe, when we went into Iraq and the public feedback was such that, like, they realized that, like, shock and awe was so horrifying and the civilian casualties were so great and people were so disgusted by it that they had to do something. And we got, like, months and months and months on the news of, like, American troops flew over tonight and dropped Pop-Tarts on Baghdad to make sure that everybody could eat. Yeah. China's gonna be dropping, like, ramen over LA. There was a stat that 41 million people, or 41 million calls were made to Florida unemployment over the last, since the pandemic started. 41 million individual calls were made to the unemployment office for the state of Florida. 0.5% of those talk to a human being. Like, actually, and I don't mean just talk to a human being. I mean, like, were answered at all. The others were on hold forever, hung up on, whatever. Were not answered, just rang and rang and rang and rang and rang. 0.5%? 0.5%? Guys, we got a problem. We got a big problem. And it's not that Trump didn't pay his taxes. You know, I think that's funny, and I think that, you know, it might politically help Biden, maybe, okay. But it's not that Trump didn't pay his taxes, or that he's in bed with the Russians, or that, like, it's not that Joe Biden is a creep, or that he has dementia or whatever. It's not, like, the hashtag Save Our Children, hashtag QAnon, all that bullshit. It's none of that. The problem in our society that leads to all of the shit that we are dealing with is this. People are being exploited to the point of misery. Their labor is exploited at such a rate, there's a fly in here again, at such a rate that they are desperate, even if they are employed. And then when conditions totally outside of their control happen globally, there is no backstop for these people. These people are going to be even more immiserated, and they were living precariously to begin with. And if you're living in a world that has told you nothing but, hey, if you work hard your whole life and you do your job and you're loyal to your employer and, you always give 2 weeks notice and all that little bullshit that we were all told, then you will have a steady job, you will make a steady income, and you will be able to do things, big luxury things like eat and live inside. And when you do that and you commit your entire life to it and you work your ass off in some of these industries where you are working your ass off, restaurants, retail, service industry shit, You are literally working your ass off every single day. You get laid off from that to no fault of your own. Nothing you could have done to avoid that. You get laid off or fired or whatever because of COVID, and then all of a sudden that disappears. You have no way to support yourself. You're going to be homeless. You can't eat. You can't feed your kids. You can't pay your bills. You can't pay your cell phone payment. Of course, man. Of course that's going to turn you to some wacky beliefs. Like once you're like tethered to reality, which is like, if I work hard, I'll be okay. I mean, that's a very basic like belief of the American public, is like, if I work hard, I'll be able to eat and live inside. Once you break that tether with American reality, then it's just grasping at straws. They're just going to fall into the first algorithm that they see, whether that's QAnon or wacky anarcho-communist Antifa, whatever, or they're going to radicalize in DSA, or you're going to have people that just go, fuck it, I'll buy into the Trump game because at least it's entertaining. Because there is no response. There is no responsibility that their government feels to the people who live in it. You leave them, you as a government, you have left them. You have, that guy said it, abandoned them. Left them to fend for themselves. And in that desperation, they don't have any other way to rationalize what's going on. They don't have any other way to rationalize what's happening to them when you contextualize it with the fact that, like, no, you don't understand. I did everything I was supposed to do. I went to school. I got a job. I always paid my bills on time. Like, I've kept a good credit score, like, or I've always tried to do my best financially. I've always tried to be responsible. I've always tried to have, like, personal responsibility. And then they get kicked in the mouth by a completely unavoidable crisis. And you can't lay that crisis at the feet of government, of course. COVID-19 is a natural phenomenon. It's a natural disaster. It is, now, you can make the argument that it is a byproduct of, like, deforestation and increasing industrialization, and that's why we even came into contact with the animals that spread COVID-19. But all that aside, like, you could also say that it was going to happen, right? In the course of human events, we're going to run across a pandemic. There usually is one every 150 years, right? So it's just a natural thing that would have happened. So it's not the fault of government that COVID-19 exists, but it is the fault of them that, like, this is kind of doomsday shit and you guys dropped the ball. And not only did you drop the ball, but you dropped the ball and then went, no, we didn't. We crushed this shit. And I think that's more, people like to pretend that, like, Trump is alienating people because he says rude things and he's crass and he, doesn't have, like, big swooping rhetoric like Obama did. He's just very, like, stupid. It's stupid. It's fake news. It's not real. Like, that kind of shit. And he violates a lot of, like, the norms that we have for speaking to one another. And people act like that's ever going to cost him votes. It's not. That stuff makes him seem authentic to people. It's completely full of shit, but it makes him seem authentic to people. And the thing that I think will actually hurt Trump that he says is this whole, like, no, we're having a great recovery. Look at us. We're having a great recovery. V-shaped recovery. Everybody's doing great. Don't we love it? Don't we love it? Boom. Boom. Bap. We're going all the way back up to the top. All the way. Fourth quarter. Fourth quarter is going to be, people are saying numbers that you wouldn't even believe. And I think it's the same dynamic that Hillary, that hurt Hillary in 2016, which was people were hurting in 2016. Not nearly as bad as they are now, obviously, but people were hurting. You had economic conditions, bad economic conditions. I mean, 40% of Americans couldn't afford $1,000 emergency. 60% of Americans couldn't afford or didn't have 60% of Americans said they lived paycheck to paycheck at the time. 60%. And Hillary Clinton made it her campaign message to run around the country and tell everybody that in fact America was already great. Look how awesome a job Barack Obama did, and we're just going to be a continuation of that because Barack Obama rules. And the way he set up our economy rules. And the way that he fixed our job market and wages and all that bullshit rules. And she lost. She got owned. Because people looked at that and went, hold on, you're saying America's already great, and I know you're doing well because you're a corrupt millionaire that's making, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars to make speeches to banks and shit. So you're a corrupt millionaire. I know that your life is getting better, but my life is not, and therefore I understand that the conditions are such that your life is going to continue to get better while mine continues to get worse. Because it's a zero-sum game. People understand there's only so much money, and if she keeps getting more of it, metaphorically, then we keep getting less. And people resoundingly, you know, obviously she had other factors involved, which is like, you know, you could chalk that up to misogyny as a culture. You could chalk that up. Dude, my allergies are killing me. You could chalk that up to decades of investigating the Clintons constantly and making them like a right-wing talking point, conspiracy theories about her actually murdering people and blah 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 blah. Like, yeah, there were a lot of factors. She was a uniquely hated politician by most of the country, and they ran her anyway against a uniquely liked politician among most of the country. And yeah, she got owned because she was saying everything's fine. And Trump was saying everything's bad, and we need to fix it. Now, full of shit, was never going to do it, didn't do anything about it, didn't even understand why it was shit and what sort of conditions needed to be fixed. No. But he at least said it was shit. And that's the premise that you got to start at. Is that, look, it's shit, because it is shit for most people. The things that government can and does control in most people's lives are shit. People's personal lives might not be shit. You know, we might not have this vast outbreak of like people just having horrible existences. Of course not. People are getting married and having children and experiencing life and doing fun, happy things in their personal time and all that kind of stuff. But every time they have to deal with the government, and guess what? We are all having to deal with the government right now because this is 6 months into a pandemic. So we're all depending on the government to either A, allow us to go back to regular life, or B, create the conditions in which we can go back to normal life, like a vaccine or therapeutics or whatever. And we're all having to deal with government right now, and that interaction is shit for all of us. We recognize it as such, and therefore our opinion of government is it is shit. And all the Democrats have to tell you is, well, all the Republicans have to tell you is everything's fine, which is a losing strategy because people don't like to be gaslit. People would rather be lied to once and then go away than literally pissed on, and while the dude's staring at you, he's like, no, it's raining. No, don't look down there. It's raining. No, it's a warm day. People would rather you just lie. You know, in that situation, people would rather you just piss on them and go, no, it's raining, and then walk off, than systematically stand there and gaslight them. And that's a losing strategy. It's a losing strategy to say everything's fine and we're going to keep America great when everything's shit. And it's the shittiest that it's been in most of the voting population's lives. Like, yeah, you got a couple of like real old boomers kicking around that like remember hyperinflation. You got a couple of like Gen Xers that remember, you know, the gas riots and stuff. Maybe. You know, and we've had some like, you know, you got some boomers alive that, right? I mean, a couple of boomers still alive that were like civil rights movement, riots in the streets, but that wasn't covered in the way that Black Lives Matter is being covered. So these are unprecedented times for most of the voting population, and they're looking at that and saying, okay, hold on. I didn't have to pay attention to this all the time 4 years ago. I didn't have to hear from my relatives all the time about whether Trump's awesome or the world is coming to an end or whatever the hell. I didn't have to have these conversations all the time. I didn't have to think about politics all the time 4 years ago. What was the difference? What did we do? Oh, yeah, that's right. We elected Donald Trump. So we flipped that switch. That didn't work. Let's turn it back off. I think that that's the visceral response that people are going to have to this. Now, you're going to have a backlash because Trump has made this about like, if I'm not reelected, then the cultural shit that you care about, right? Which we have to acknowledge that, I don't know, a third of the country, but a larger piece of the voting population cares deeply about things like abortion, about things like, goddamn, it's 2020, but same-sex marriage, transgender rights. Yeah, people. Those people, all bigots, all bad people. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's none of your business. That's not for government to get involved in. But all that aside, I'm not litigating that. I'm just saying that there are a group of people that believe that that they are on Flight 93 and that they have to crash the plane. Because if they don't crash the plane, then they are going to go into a world of like everybody's AOC and it's socialism and there's tanks in the street communism and we're you know, and gay conversion therapy for like, or not gay conversion therapy, but like they're turning the frogs gay for every child in America, and you know, Sharia law in the schools and all that nonsense. All this stuff that they have just been like conditioned in the back of their lizard brain to think that is going to happen if they don't crash the plane by voting for Trump again. That's a large portion of the country, and they are getting activated because conditions are such that conditions are so bad that they too, just like the unemployed folks, they too are looking for a explanation. You know, I elected Trump because he was going to fix everything. Everything's not fixed. What the hell? And they are trying to explain that without betraying their past decision. Because once you went, oh yeah, everything's fucked and Trump is the answer, you pulled the last lever that you had as someone who's engaged that way politically. That was your hand grenade into the system, as Michael Moore said. Like, that was your, like, no. It's so owning the libs, and it's so out there, and he's such an outsider that if we pull a coup, basically, and elect this guy, you know, because people forget, this was, like, unbelievable at first. People were like, wait, what? This guy? If we elect this guy, that's us lobbing the bomb at the entire system. He's going to blow the whole thing up and rebuild it to where it works and get us running efficiently again. And not only is he going to do it, he's going to do it quick. Like, they bought into that whole story. And the fact that it hasn't happened, dude, they're having to rationalize that. Because once you pull your last lever and lob your hand grenade, what else is there to do other than double down and throw another grenade? Pull the lever again. Like, there is no other, you're not going to double back. You're not going to be like, well, wait, oh God, I threw a hand grenade. Damn. No, you're going to be like, well, I already threw the grenade. I already blew the thing up. And so, shit, ride or die, baby. And you're going to put it in fifth gear and keep going. That's just psychologically how humans are going to process, how humans in America are going to process this. And that's why it's going to be so deactivating and so perilous to just the general balance of our sanity if Trump wins. Because the opposite side will have that meltdown. They have been saying nothing. And I don't mean the left, I mean like the nominal center in this country or whatever, the MSNBC types. The corporate Dems. They have done nothing for 4.5 years now, but scream at the absolute top of their lungs and write long think pieces and emergency breaking news headlines about how Trump is literally the end of society and democracy and freedom. And that, you know, he's selling us out to the highest bidder, that Russia is going to invade us, that we are in a uniquely vulnerable position that only Trump has put us in, and that this is the end of the world as we know it. And even through sketchy means, the American people re-elect this person. What are they going to do? There's not going to be any way that they can cope with that. The only logical next step there is to turn on the electorate. Because those people by themselves are an elite class of people. They're just elite, liberal types, and there's not very many of them. They in accordance to the voting population, you know, there may be like at most 10% of registered voters who are just deeply committed to liberal ideology. They're well educated, they're mostly white, and they're affluent, right? These are the people who have been screaming on your Twitter feed, doing the claps on your Twitter feed and on your Facebook pages, and sharing like the Occupy Dems page, and like going on cable news and talking about how Trump said a rude word once, or Trump is a Russian agent from 1987 or whatever the hell. Those people are a very small piece of the population, but they have access to all the media channels. They're very loud on Twitter. They clap a lot. The only way that they are going to be able to process that the country re-elected Trump, even if it's sketch, right? Like, even if it's the most like shady process ever, the only way that they're going to be able to reconcile that in their brain is by saying like, well, the voters are all idiots, or the voters are all racist, or the voters are all stupid. It's the only way. The voters are all homophobes. The voters are all, xenophobic. Like, that's the only way they're going to be able to rationalize this. The voters are anti-feminist because Kamala Harris. And it will be the voters' fault that Trump gets reelected, because that's the only way that they can reconcile it. They could not possibly say, well, hold on, maybe we created the material conditions where people don't believe us anymore. Maybe we created the material conditions where people hear what our leading politicians are saying, and they go, oh, wait, I heard Obama say that, I heard Clinton say that, I heard Carter say that, and none of those people helped me materially. I'm still in, and even if they did, those gains have been so washed away already by like one Republican getting his way that I am standing in a breadline. And I think that it's dangerous. I think that it's very, very dangerous for you to create the conditions where people do not believe that the Democrats will help them, and the Democrats are not explicitly saying that they will help them. They're doing both things wrong. They have not instilled the belief that they are going to help people in the general population, and they are not saying that they are going to help people when it's difficult. Like, sure, they'll talk about like doing different diversity things and like some LGBTQ rights and all that kind of stuff, but they're not gonna get in the trenches and roll up their sleeves and fist fight the Republicans so that we can get coronavirus relief, or so that like we can have a moratorium on evictions or rent or whatever. They're not going to do that. They're not going to have those tough conversations and those hard fights. They're not going to be rude. They're not going to step outside of the racquetball court of political norms. Of course not. So they're not doing either thing. Now, the Republicans aren't helping people either, most of the time, but they are, well, all the time, but they are saying that they will. And Trump's going out and signing executive orders about healthcare because he knows that it's an important voting issue. Trump's going out and signing executive orders about rent moratoriums and fixing the unemployment problem, even though they don't work and they're not adequate solutions. Who cares? He's saying that he'll do it. And if you are so alienated and disengaged, which is what I'm willing to bet our voting population is at this point, if you are so alienated and disengaged that you don't see a material difference between the two, that it's just two bickering rich people determining who can, like, exploit impoverished people more, then you are going to look at that and say, like, well, I'd rather have the guy that says it's fucked up and says he's going to do something about it. I don't believe him, but I don't believe either of them. So at least he says it. And when somebody asks me why I voted for him, I can say, well, he said he would do it. Because people would rather be duped than screwed over. And there's a difference. That's why I think that this tax thing will probably matter. Is because it exposes that, like, he duped you, bro. Like, literally any relative or any person that I run into over the holidays or anything like that, that's like, yeah, go Trump, I'm just gonna laugh in their face and be like, you bought that shit? You bought that he was like a successful businessman, that he hasn't done anything except lose money his entire fucking life? You bought that he cared about anybody's material needs? You bought that he gives a shit about he's scamming you. The whole thing's a scam. This guy has spent his entire professional career just kicking the can down the road and hoping that somebody else will pick it up. And guess what? He found a sucker, which is y'all. All the Trumpists, all the Trump army. They're the suckers, man. Like, they're the guys that are picking up Trump's bills so that they can keep the name on the building. Like, that's it. Trump has figured out how to brand America. And branding is everything. Branding is, that's what I do for a living. Branding is everything. People buy into a brand way before they buy into a product or a plan or an idea. They buy into a brand. You don't buy an iPhone because it's a good piece of technology. Anybody can make an iPhone. You buy an iPhone because it has the Apple on it. You buy an iPhone because all the commercials when you were a kid. You buy the iPhone because you had an iPod. You buy the iPhone because you already have a Mac and they work so well together. That's a brand. And Trump has created a brand for America, which is, we are badasses. We rock. We are number one. We always do shit better than everybody else. No one believes it. It's incredible. It's amazing. It's astounding. Look at us. We're fantastic. And if we're not those things at any given moment, it is because of brown people, or it is because of poor people, or it is because of black people, or it is because we have a lack of law and order, or it is because it is only that way in Democrat-run cities, or because the Democrats are stopping me from making it good and great and amazing, right? And if that's the brand, and the brand that he's made for the other side, when there's only two reasonable choices, the brand that he's made for the other side is Antifa, China, unrest, creepy, weird ties to pedophilia that people credibly are running with. I mean, people are really like, yeah. The pedophilia is exclusively like liberals. No. All the creepy rich people are pedophiles. That's all of them, Trump included. They're all creepy rich pedophiles. That's what they do because there is money. They have a mountain of money and no other problems, and so they're bored. And they're goblins. And so they do horrible, horrible shit. And of course that manifests itself in the most horrible sex crimes available. But that's all of them. That's not just like the Democrats who go to the certain pizza shop or whatever. But all of that shit is at the top of consciousness, right? Like, all of that shit is at the top of your Facebook feed. All of that shit is at the top of mind when you talk to your relatives and shit. It's all the shit that they know about. And so if your choice is America is good, great, and awesome, which I've always known my whole life, these people say, or I'm going to turn over good, great, and awesome America to the global pedophile Jew, black, Mexican cabal that is going to ruin the fabric of our country as we know it, whatever that means. I'm starting to think that it just means, like, I won't be able to go golfing 3 times a week, and my 0 lot line retirement home will have to be within 3 miles of a black person. What are they going to pick? Like, what? Honestly, what choice are they going to make? Because that is the level of political discourse that we have right now. It's not with, we're not having the conversation of, like, if we elect Joe Biden, we can bring all the troops home, or if we elect Joe Biden, we can have Medicare for all, or free college, or he's going to get rid of, like, the impending doom that people are going to have when mortgages come due, or he's going to provide a universal basic income to people, or something. No, he's not running on anything. He's just running on not being Trump. And so in the absence of something to vote for, way more people are going to vote against turning over good, great, awesome America to the radical lesbians or whatever. That's just all there is to it. The Sharia law lesbians. And that makes me very anxious, because on top of that, you're creating the conditions in which the people who say I don't want to turn over America to, the Antifa trans people or whatever, those people are going to be hyper radicalized if they lose, because that's the ball game to them, right? Like, the whole ball game has been like, no, we got to stop this from happening. And if they fail, it's literally the end of the world. And these people are armed. These people are convinced, very deeply convinced, that they are on the right side of these issues, that they are on the just, righteous, Christly side of these problems. And their reaction to losing, when the stakes have been set up so high for them, is very, very concerning. It's very, very concerning. You can say what you want about Black Lives Matter and leftists and stuff like that getting out on the street and, like, rioting and burning stuff, right? But, like, there is a certain amount of measure with the left in general. There is a certain amount of, like, a line that they're not going to cross. Like, people who are protesting Black Lives Matter, on the whole, now you're going to have nut jobs in every group, right? But on the whole, 99.99999% of the people who are going to go out and protest Black Lives Matter, or protest the insane class disparity that's going on right now, or even protest a Trump victory under shady circumstances, are not going to do it armed. They're not going to do it while pointing guns at other people, while intimidating people with, weapons and armored outfits and shit, tactical gear. They're not going to form militias to intimidate people. Now, yeah, they might break some windows. They might steal some shit. They might burn some shit down. They might cause some property damage. That's true. But they are largely, A, not armed to begin with, which is a different conversation entirely. But B, even if they were, they are not inclined to escalate to violence because the state has a monopoly of force, and the state is directly opposed to clearly, based on the actions of the police over the last 6 months, is clearly opposed to what the protesters stand for and what they are talking about. So, debate tomorrow. Debate tomorrow. Debate tomorrow. Debate tomorrow. So I was thinking about streaming the debate tomorrow because it's going to be on C-SPAN, and so I can stream it without like getting screwed. But then I thought, nah, what I'll do is I'll watch it tomorrow night. Like, we'll do a regular stream tomorrow. I'll watch it tomorrow night, and then Wednesday morning when we do the stream, we'll pull up the clips and watch the clips. I think that's probably the best way to handle it, because like me streaming for 3 hours watching the debate, like I'm just going to be yelling over it and it'll be annoying. But we can see and pause the clips and just kind of go through them. So it'll probably be like a long stream on Wednesday, but tomorrow, regular stream, I'll watch the debate tomorrow night. Oh my God, I'm so excited. 2 grown men just sliding deeper and deeper into dementia brain on live television. Yeah. So, y'all have a good day.